Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 52. Jin Wang had previously mentioned to Yeshu that he wanted to restore his identity, but he didn't expect this person to have already drafted the imperial edict so quickly. Furthermore, what nonsense is this? Yeshu pointed at the imperial edict, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. My rebellion was just an act to catch the spies hidden in the capital. I faked my death to make the traitors in the imperial court lower their guard, so that you could catch them all in one fell swoop. How is that nonsense? Isn't that the truth? Jin Wang said. After the assassination attempt at the hunting grounds, all the spies hidden in the capital were caught, and the intelligence network that they had built up over the years was also uprooted. As for how you caught all the traitors in the imperial court in one fell swoop, all the officials saw it for themselves. Yeshu was stunned by how he could spout such nonsense with a straight face. Furthermore, the first reason seemed to be something that he had made up, yet this person was using it just like that. Yeshu said, but the original's rebellion is a fact. But that wasn't done by you. Jin Wang calmly looked back at him. After that day, Yeshu found time to bring the little yellow dog back to Yangzin Palace Hall and had it explained everything clearly. After learning the truth, Jin Wang wasn't too surprised. After all, this person was able to accept that he was just a character from a novel without any difficulty. His mental fortitude was so strong that Yeshu couldn't help but sigh in amazement. Ashu, I've already told you that you don't need to take responsibility for something that you didn't do. That would be unfair to you, Jin Wang said warmly. Yeshu's heart skipped a beat and he looked away. Do you think anyone will believe this reason? Isn't it too far-fetched? Jin Wang chuckled softly. Do you think everyone is the same as you, so impudent in front of Zhen? Who would dare to not believe an imperial edict that this emperor personally issued? Oh, I almost forgot. This person was the emperor. No matter how outrageous the emperor's words were, no one would dare to question them. Jin Wang took the imperial seal from the side and handed it to Yeshu. If there are no objections, then put the seal on it. Yeshu's expression froze. He didn't take it. Instead, he placed his hand on the back of Jin Wang's hand, intertwined his fingers and pressed down hard at the end of the edict. Unlike Yeshu's cold limbs, Jin Wang's hands were very warm. His fingers were slender and strong, and his joints were clearly defined. That warmth turned into scalding heat when their skin touched, and it was transmitted through their palms. Yeshu wanted to retract his hand, but Jin Wang grabbed it instead. He gently rubbed Yeshu's hand with his fingertips and said, Zhen forgot to mention just now, the right prime minister is already very old. Before the end of the year, he had already submitted his resignation letter to me. This emperor approved it. Just as it was in the novel, Chang Lu had a left and a right minister. The left minister was a trusted aide of the monarch, while the right minister was an elder of 3 dynasties. In the same year that the left prime minister rebelled, the right prime minister retired and returned to his hometown. Jin Wang decided to remove him from the post of prime minister and never appoint anyone to the position again. However, Jin Wang clearly did not mean that. He had been tricked by him again. Yeshu smiled bitterly. Your Majesty, please have mercy. I haven't even given birth yet and you're already in such a hurry to make me work for you. Jin Wang's expression was calm, and his tone was neither fast nor slow. I will naturally share your burdens. I won't let you be worked hard. Yeshu turned around and their gazes met. They both laughed at the same time. Jin Wang kissed Yeshu on the lips. Welcome back, my beloved minister yet. The next day, the emperor announced to the world that the true identity of the imperial consort was actually the left prime minister Yeshu. The imperial edict explained in detail that the left prime minister had faked his death to put on a show, and that the case of the left prime minister had been dismissed. It also used a long narrative to describe how Minister Ye had worked hard for Chang Lu and was loyal and devoted to the emperor. The imperial edict was written in a passionate manner, and all the rumors among the people were dispelled. As for why Minister Ye had pretended to be the imperial consort after faking his death, the imperial edict did not mention it at all. All the officials had their own thoughts. The disagreement was fake, the falling out was fake, and the substitute was also fake. Could the display of affection in front of all the officials also be fake? Everyone was unsure. Once the imperial edict was released, the entire court was immediately divided into two factions. Those who were certain that the emperor and Minister Ye had cooperated previously to put on a show. To use the word love to guess the relationship between the two of them was simply a disgrace to the brotherly love between them. On the other hand, the other faction believed that there was true love in the world, and that there was true love between the emperor and his minister. The two of them having feelings for each other did not affect their secret cooperation. The two factions were at odds. As for Minister Ye's fake death, not many people cared. Not to mention Yeshu, even Jin Wang did not expect this result. We're all too free. Just do more work. Minister Ye, who had been reinstated, said. After the imperial edict was released, Jin Wang completely renovated the Ye residence. After another half a month, the Ye residence was completely rebuilt and Jin Wang's injuries were basically healed. Jin Wang picked a day and personally sent him back to the residence. On the day that Minister Ye returned to his residence, a long line of carriages carrying the imperial bestowed treasures lined the streets of Chang'an. The common people lined the streets to welcome them. It could be said that the scenery was boundless. It was even more magnificent than when the Ye residence was first completed. What a waste of money and manpower. Yeshu lowered the curtain of the carriage and shrunk back resentfully. Jin Wang placed a hand on Yeshu's shoulder and smiled faintly. I've already removed most of the treasures as you wished. Are you still not satisfied? Yeshu said, I'm satisfied, very satisfied. Jin Wang smiled and kissed him. When they arrived at the Prime Minister's residence, all of Yeshu's servants were waiting in the residence. These days, Jin Wang actually did not make things difficult for them. After being imprisoned for a few days, he found a manor outside the city and put them under house arrest. It was just that previously, they all thought that Yeshu was really dead and were on tenterhooks day and night, afraid that they would be implicated. Seeing their master return to the residence in such a glorious manner, they all shed silent tears. Some of the elderly and weak even fainted on the spot. Jin Wang had head steward Gao Jin read out the imperial edict. Yeshu bowed and received the edict. In front of everyone, the two of them acted out a loyal minister and virtuous monarch play. After dismissing the officials who had come to join in the fun, the gates of the Prime Minister's residence were closed. Yeshu was unhappy. Why are you still here? Yeshu walked into the central room and glanced at the person beside him. A maid was about to serve the two of them tea. When she heard Yeshu's tone, she was so frightened that she almost fell to her knees. Jin Wang was not angry. He hugged him and sat down on the main seat. Are you really not coming back with me tonight? After all, this place is not as good as the palace, and... He glanced at Yeshu's abdomen. It was still winter, so Yeshu's abdomen could still be covered with a thick outer garment. However, spring was coming soon, so his abdomen would not be able to be hidden. According to Jin Wang's intentions, he naturally wanted to announce his relationship with Yeshu to the public as soon as possible, so that he could openly plan a grand wedding in the palace. However, he had his doubts. Previously, he had thought that Yeshu was plotting a rebellion. This series of actions had almost destroyed the foundation that the original owner of this body had built in the imperial court over the years. If he wanted to restore Minister Ye's former prestige, it was far from enough to just reward him with some wealth. He still needed some time. At this time, announcing to the public that Yeshu was pregnant with his child and then bringing him into the imperial harem would make it meaningless for him to restore Yeshu's official position. He did not want Yeshu to just become his subordinate. As for Yeshu himself, he did not care about these things at first. He was not from this world, so he did not pursue power. He also did not have any ambitions. Whether or not he could clear his name and restore his official position, he did not particularly care. However, he could not resist Jin Wang's constant nagging. One moment, he felt that he should let Yeshu return to his normal life as an official, so that it would be easier for him to do things. The next moment, he felt that it was not safe for Yeshu to leave the palace, so he could not be at ease. After struggling for more than half a month, Yeshu finally came to a decision. He would return to his residence and stay there for a few days. Jin Wang muttered to himself for a moment, "Why don't we stay at your residence tonight?" The two of them looked at each other. Yeshu was expressionless. Minister Ye has just been restored to his official position, so Zhen still have many things to discuss with Minister Ye personally. Jin Wang put on a righteous appearance. Minister Ye must prioritize the overall situation. Yeshu. Prioritize the overall situation, my ass. Thus, on that day, after His Majesty personally sent Minister Ye back to his residence, Minister Ye not only hosted a banquet in his residence to entertain His Majesty, he also discussed state affairs with His Majesty for an entire night. The news spread throughout the country the next day and everyone sighed with emotion. Minister Ye was truly a wise minister of the dynasty. In the following days, Minister Ye and His Majesty frequently discussed matters. His Majesty would visit the Ye residence almost every day, and the two of them would talk for an entire night. In the end, even the servants in the residence began to worry. The young master and His Majesty discussed matters every night. It had been a long time since he had a good night's sleep. If this continued, how could his body endure? Fortunately, as winter came to an end, Jin Wang finally became busy and no longer had the time to run to the Ye residence every day. Thus, he could only summon Minister Ye to the palace in the name of discussing matters. "I'm not going." Yeshu glanced at head steward Gao Jin, who had come to summon him, and said in a cold tone, "Gong Gong, report to His Majesty that this official is not feeling well tonight and cannot discuss matters with him." Head steward Gao Jin was a little troubled. "This." Yeshu said, "Gong Gong, just report my words as it is. If he blames you, I will take responsibility." After sending head steward Gao away, Yeshu leaned back in his chair and rubbed his abdomen through his clothes. "I've never seen your father be so clingy. Let's ignore him today. You don't have any objections, right?" The cub moved slightly under his skin. The mother and the child reached a consensus. It wasn't that Yeshu wanted to cause trouble for no reason, but recently, he had been a little restless. Ever since his heat period, Jin Wang had not been intimate with him. In addition, now that his pregnancy was gradually growing, Jin Wang was worried that he would hurt the child, so he rarely even comforted him. Ever since he transmigrated to this world, he had never abstained from sex for such a long time. Normally, he could still restrain himself, but once he got close to that person, it was all because that bastard kept seducing him. It was already late at night. Yeshu lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. When that person was by his side, he couldn't stand it. But when that person wasn't by his side, it was a different story. If there really were evildoers who could bring disaster to a country, Jin Wang would definitely be one of them. Yeshu thought angrily. It was quiet outside the room. Suddenly, a strange sound came from outside the window. Yeshu hadn't been asleep to begin with, so he immediately opened his eyes. He was all too familiar with this sound. His Majesty the Emperor's ability to climb over walls and windows was getting better and better. Yeshu didn't make a sound as he closed his eyes and continued to pretend to be asleep. In the darkness, he felt someone slowly approach him and lift the bed curtains. But that was it. That person seemed to only be standing at the head of the bed, quietly looking at him without moving or making a sound. Did Jin Wang change his nature tonight? The two of them were in an invisible stalemate for a moment. Yeshu couldn't take it anymore and quietly opened his eyes to clearly see the silhouette standing in front of the bed. It wasn't Jin Wang. Yeshu suddenly sat up. Just as he was about to speak, someone covered his mouth. "It's me." This voice was still somewhat young and inexperienced, but it sounded particularly familiar. Yeshu's eyes flickered and the latter said, "Xiao Huan." It was actually Xiao Huan. Xiao Huan had clearly left the capital a few days ago, so how could he? The moon was obscured by dark clouds, so Yeshu couldn't clearly see Xiao Huan's expression. He could only feel the dense cold air emanating from his body. He didn't know how long he had been running around outside, but his body was so cold. As if worried that the cold air would spread to his body, Xiao Huan let go of his hand and took half a step back. "Apologies, I didn't mean to offend you. I heard some things on the way here, so I came back to confirm." The youth seemed to be at a loss. You really are?" "It's really me," Yeshu said. "I lied to you before. I'm sorry." Xiao Huan's voice paused. "I knew it." After a long time, Xiao Huan said softly, "I knew you wouldn't do something like that." "That's great, Shugur. It's great that you're fine." Yeshu asked, "If you wanted to see me, why did you come through the window in the middle of the night?" Xiao Huan rubbed his nose. "I just arrived in the capital. I didn't expect that I would get here this late, but I was too impatient and couldn't wait until dawn." "Why was this child so silly?" Yeshu sighed. "Forget it. I'll have the servants arrange a bedroom for you. If you have anything to say, we can talk tomorrow." He got up and was about to walk out the door when someone suddenly tugged on his sleeve. Yeshu turned around and saw the pitiful expression in the other man's eyes. "What's wrong now?" Yeshu's heart softened as he asked patiently. Xiao Huan felt wronged. "You're an Omega?" Yeshu said, "Yes." Xiao Huan felt even more wronged. Yeshu felt helpless and said honestly, "Xiao Huan, even if I'm not an Omega, it's still impossible for us to be together. Is it because Shugur has someone he likes?" Yeshu said, "Yes." The youth's eyes reddened. "Is it Jin Wang?" Yeshu didn't answer. The young Omega looked very wronged and he couldn't help but feel pity for him. He reached out and gently patted the youth's head. "Xiao Huan, you're still young. You don't understand that adoration and love are two completely different things. You'll understand it when you find someone you truly like." Xiao Huan suddenly hugged him. "But I'm..." His voice stopped abruptly. A martial artist's senses were extremely sharp. He could clearly feel a slight bulge under the other man's thin clothes. "This is..." Xiao Huan's expression went blank for a moment. Suddenly, there was another sound outside the window. The two of them subconsciously turned around. A familiar figure was leaning against the window with his arms crossed in front of him. His expression was hidden in the darkness and couldn't be seen clearly. Yeshu's heart skipped a beat. End chapter. Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 53. Jin Wang narrowed his eyes and looked coldly at the two people in the room who were hugging each other. His prime minister was throwing a tantrum today. He had been summoned several times but he refused to enter the palace. He had sent head steward Gao Jin to personally fetch him, but just like everyone else, he had been sent back. Perhaps it was because the two of them had been sticking together recently that His Majesty could no longer stand being alone. He hurried to deal with the matters at hand and drove over here without taking a break. Then he saw this scene. The two little Omegas in the room were a little stunned. They stared blankly in Jin Wang's direction. Xiao Huan's hand was still on Yeshu's arm. Yeshu was the first to recover. He hurriedly pushed Xiao Huan away. "No, it's not like that. Listen to me." Unexpectedly, Xiao Huan didn't let go. Instead, he held on to Yeshu even tighter. Your stomach. Let go." "Why did you?" Before Xiao Huan could finish speaking, a hand reached out from the side and forcefully pushed his hand away. Jin Wang pulled Yeshu into his arms and looked at him with a faint smile. No wonder Minister Ye didn't listen to the imperial summons today. It turns out that he was meeting someone in private. Yeshu. Was it too late for him to turn back now? A moment later, the room was brightly lit. Jin Wang sat in the main seat. Yeshu carefully brought him a cup of tea. Xiao Huan stood to the side and glared angrily at Jin Wang. It was the time of the night when people should be fast asleep. Yeshu was only wearing his inner robes. His waist was slender, and the outline of his bulging abdomen was even more obvious. How could Xiao Huan not see what it was at this time? Dog Emperor. Idiot Emperor. Xiao Huan's eyes were red. He looked as if he wanted to fight Jin Wang to the death right there and then. The atmosphere in the room was so tense that it was hard to breathe. Yeshu hung his head like a quail. He looked down and tried his best to minimize his presence. Why are you still standing there? You should not stand for too long. Come and sit down, Jin Wang said indifferently as he sipped his tea. Yeshu replied with an "oh." Just as he was about to walk past in front of Jin Wang to sit down, he was forcefully pulled into an embrace. Jin Wang chuckled as his warm breath brushed against the back of his ear. Zhen meant for you to sit here. Yeshu shuddered and his knees went weak. Let go. Zhen is not letting go. Jin Wang hugged his waist and said softly, don't you like it when Zhen hug you like this? Xiao Huan's knuckles cracked. Yeshu. Oh no, I forgot that there was someone else in the room. Yeshu's ears were burning red. He didn't dare to raise his head. Jin Wang asked leisurely, Duke Huguo left the capital a few days ago. How come young Master Xiao is still here? Xiao Huan didn't know how many times he had cursed Jin Wang in his heart. He replied in a muffled voice, this subject heard that Minister Ye had been reinstated and came to visit. Since you came to visit, why did you enter through the window in the dead of night? What kind of scandal is this? Xiao Huan looked at him, speechless. Didn't you enter through the window, too? Jin Wang calmly looked at Xiao Huan. He didn't seem to think that there was anything wrong with the emperor of the country entering his subject's bedroom in the middle of the night. Yeshu quietly pulled on Jin Wang's sleeve. Your Majesty. Jin Wang tilted his head and looked at him. Today's matter was a misunderstanding. I didn't know that young Master Xiao would come here. Also, he didn't mean to. Xiao Huan had only come here because he was worried about him. He didn't want this person to be punished because of him. Jin Wang calmly moved closer and lowered his voice. Beloved subject, are you begging for mercy on his behalf? Yeshu pursed his lips and nodded. The smile in Jin Wang's eyes deepened. Then, beloved subject, do you know what price you have to pay if you want Zhen to let him go? Even Yeshu's neck turned red. Jin Wang's heart was tickled by his reaction. Yeshu was always particularly sensitive when there were outsiders around. He was even easier to bully than usual. Jin Wang was no longer in the mood to pick a fight with Xiao Huan. He called out, guards. The door was immediately pushed open and 2 imperial bodyguards walked in. Jin Wang ordered, take him away and watch over him. Xiao Huan didn't want to stay here any longer. As a martial artist, his hearing was extremely good. He could clearly hear what the 2 were saying in low voices. Xiao Huan's tongue was sore. He glared fiercely at Jin Wang and coldly said, I can walk on my own. The door was closed again. Jin Wang picked Yeshu up in his arms and carried him to the bed. He leaned over and pressed himself against him. Yeshu didn't have time to care about where Jin Wang had taken all the servants in his residence. He subconsciously hooked his arm around the back of Jin Wang's neck. Soon, his entire body was trembling. Jin Wang supported himself with one hand by Yeshu's side. His other hand slowly moved down. But at this critical moment, his movements stopped. You didn't come to the palace tonight because you wanted to see Xiao Huan, right? Yeshu was completely teased by him and almost bit his tongue. No, that's not. Jin Wang gazed at the person beneath him. The evil thoughts in his heart were satisfied like never before. The eyes of the person in his arms were red and misty. He seemed to want to pull on Jin Wang's hand but gave up in grievance. His fingers opened and curled up impatiently. He helplessly grasped the quilt beneath him. He was soaking wet. Who would have thought that this was the high and mighty Prime Minister who was the head of all the officials during the day? Jin Wang originally thought that since Yeshu had never truly been the Prime Minister before, perhaps he would encounter some trouble in the beginning and would experience some hardship. But he didn't expect that this person's ability to adapt was beyond Jin Wang's imagination. However, the more this person appeared to be put together outside, the more Jin Wang wanted to see him sink into lust. Jin Wang. Yeshu finally couldn't take it anymore and called out to him in a low voice. His voice was muffled. It was soft and hoarse, like a kitten gently scratching. Jin Wang suddenly came back to his senses. He softly said, "Sorry," and finally let himself go. A moment later, Yeshu curled up on the bed. His eyes were red as he complained. "You only know how to bully people. I see that you still haven't had your fill." Jin Wang casually threw the silk handkerchief that he had just finished wiping with on the floor. "No matter, it's too late today. We'll continue tomorrow." Yeshu was stunned. "You're still doing it tomorrow? Do you think that's the end of today?" Jin Wang raised his eyebrows. "You left me in the palace and secretly met with another man in your residence. Minister, yeah, do you think this punishment is enough?" Yeshu buried half his face in the quilt and didn't answer. "Tomorrow is your rest day. I'll allow you to sleep until the afternoon." Jin Wang lay down beside Yeshu and lowered his head to kiss his forehead. "When you wake up, come to the imperial study to see me. Remember to wear your court robes." When Yeshu woke up the next day, Jin Wang was no longer in the residence. It was already close to noon. Yeshu didn't ask anyone to prepare a meal. He directly changed into his court robes and took a sedan to enter the imperial palace. He couldn't think of any other way that Jin Wang could punish him with. He was still pregnant. At worst, he would just be slept with. He didn't believe that Jin Wang had any other tricks up his sleeves that he hadn't experienced before. But Yeshu looked at the immaculate black court robes he was wearing and felt an inexplicable sense of shame. Chang Lu's court robes weren't thick and heavy. Only the back and collar were embroidered with complicated patterns. A jade belt was tied around his waist and his hair was tied up in a crown. It looked dignified and solemn. Who would have known that he wasn't dressed like this to discuss official business with the monarch? Instead, Yeshu pulled the fox fur cloak tightly around him to cover his bulging abdomen. The dog emperor still knew how to play. When he arrived at the imperial study, Jin Wang was in the middle of a discussion with someone. After being notified by an attendant, Yeshu entered the main hall. Inside the imperial study stood a tall young man wearing light armor. Yeshu bowed to Jin Wang, then looked at the man. "General Zhou." The man hurriedly bowed. "Greetings to Minister Ye." This man was called Zhou Yan. He had met Yeshu once before. Back then, Yeshu tried to escape during the imperial family's ancestral worship ceremony. He had coincidentally met this man and the minister in charge of Taekang Temple outside of the temple. At that time, he still didn't know how to control his pheromones and was caught red-handed. Afterwards, he was presented back to Jin Wang as a tribute beauty. It had been a long time since that incident. Yeshu didn't care about that small grudge anymore. Moreover, the latter didn't know anything about it. He nodded to Zhou Yan and asked, "Are General Zhou and His Majesty in the middle of a discussion?" "It's West Xia," Jin Wang replied. "West Xia has been invading our borders repeatedly. I'm afraid that war will break out soon." Jin Wang gestured for head steward Gao Jin to take a chair for Yeshu. After Yeshu sat down, Jin Wang asked, "What do you think?" Yeshu said, "Since they are bringing the battle to us, then we'll fight. How can we be a turtle at this time?" Jin Wang's lips curled up in satisfaction. Zhou Yan said, "West Xia people have been nomadic for generations. They are brave and good at fighting. If we rashly send out troops, I'm afraid." "General Zhou, you worry too much. If they have a good army, so does Chang Lu," Yeshu gently interrupted. "Moreover, winning a war doesn't depend on martial strength but intelligence. If it was just West Xia, Jin Wang alone was more than enough to deal with it. Moreover, he had Yeshu's help now." The young prime minister leisurely leaned back in his chair, his eyes flashing with a confident smile. General Zhou Yan originally wanted to say something, but the moment he saw this smile, his mind suddenly went blank. He stared at Yeshu in a daze, but then he heard Jin Wang suddenly say, "This emperor still have important matters to discuss with minister yet. Let's end it here for today." "But..." General Zhou Yan opened his mouth, but he saw that His Majesty's head steward had already come over to open the door for him. He could only bow and leave. Before he left, Zhou Yan couldn't help but glance back into the hall. Through the slowly closing door, he saw that His Majesty had already walked to Minister Ye's side as if he was about to lean over and say something to him. After the door closed completely, Jin Wang pinched Yeshu's cheek. "Seductive vixen." Yeshu immediately retorted, "Vinegar jar." Jin Wang was expressionless. "Xiao Huan." Yeshu immediately cowered. "I was wrong." "It's good that you know you were wrong." Jin Wang smiled with satisfaction and led Yeshu to the side hall. There was a warm room next to the imperial study for His Majesty to rest in. There was a soft couch in the room, and a wooden brocade box was placed on a small table next to the couch. It looked a little familiar. Yeshu remembered where the box had come from and his expression instantly changed. End chapter. Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 54. Yeshu took a step back without saying a word. He was too naive. He thought that after they spent days being all lovey-dovey to each other, this dog of an emperor would learn to be more humane. But it turned out that this man was more like a dog than he thought. Jin Wang seemed oblivious to his reaction and walked forward to open the brocade box. The dazzling array of sex toys blinded Yeshu's eyes. Jin Wang looked up at Yeshu, who had almost retreated to the wall. "What are you cowering for? Come here. Didn't you throw this thing away?" Yeshu said angrily. "I did intend to throw it away." Jin Wang restrained the smile in his eyes and explained slowly, "But I thought that since this is a gift from the second prince of Great Yan, in order to express the friendship between our two nations, it cannot be so carelessly thrown away." "Yeshu. To hell with your friendship." Jin Wang unhurriedly took out a few jade bottles at the top, and then he picked up a few items of various shapes and sizes, and he played with the selected items in his hands. Yeshu pressed his body against the wall and said pitifully, "Your Majesty." Jin Wang said carelessly, "Yes." Yeshu said softly, "Are you really going to use these on me?" As he said this, Jin Wang took out a jade object that was as thick as a woman's forearm from the brocade box. The jade was transparent and had a bumpy surface with a coiling dragon pattern engraved on it. Yeshu's legs went soft as he looked at it. Jin Wang held back his laughter and deliberately shook the jade in his hands. "Can't handle this." Yeshu quickly shook his head. He thought for a moment, then he put the jade back into the box and took out a small, thin object. This object was similar to a silver hairpin in length and thickness. It was hollow and had a small silver ball sealed at one end. Jin Wang fiddled with the small ball with his finger and deliberately pulled it out slowly, as if he was studying how to use it. Yeshu's cheeks were burning. "Jin Wang. I don't want this." Yeshu felt aggrieved. "Don't use these." Jin Wang sighed, "I really don't know what to do with you." He put the things in his hands back into the box, got up and walked to Yeshu's side. He lowered his eyes and looked at him. You don't want this or that. What do you want? Yeshu held his hand. I want you. Jinwang couldn't help but chuckle softly and said, sweet talker. However, his tone changed again. But a few sweet words can't make up for the punishment. How about this? Since Minister Ye is pregnant, Zhen will give you a chance, Jinwang said. You can pick 3 items from these. Yeshu said, but... Jinwang continued calmly, if you didn't pick them within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, then the choice would be up to Zhen. After saying that, he turned around and left the warm room. Dog Emperor. Idiot Emperor. Yeshu was so angry that he wanted to hit someone. Jinwang didn't care how this person was cursing him in his heart. He leisurely returned to the dragon throne and even began to diligently write without moving about. The time it takes for an incense stick to burn passed quickly. Yeshu stepped out of the warm room at the last moment. Jinwang put down his brush. Have you made your choice? Yeshu's face was still burning hot. He put his hands behind his back and answered vaguely. Jinwang said, let Zhen have a look. Yeshu didn't move. I've already agreed to your request. Shouldn't you release Xiao Huan now? Jinwang smiled. He unfolded the imperial edict in his hand and pushed it in front of Yeshu. The war with West Xia is imminent. This emperor wishes to appoint General Zhou Yan as the commander-in-chief of 3 armies. The army just so happens to be lacking a deputy general, so Zhen will let Xiao Huan go, Jinwang said. Yeshu's eyes flickered. You want him to go to the border? What, does your heart ache for him? Jinwang raised his eyebrows. Xiao Huan is the only son of Duke Huguo. He has been learning the art of war and martial arts since he was young. He will have this appointment sooner or later. What's more, his father has already made it clear to me that he wants to go to the border to gain more experience. But, Jinwang said, Xiao Huan barged into the Prime Minister's residence at night and met with Zhen's sweetheart in private. This emperor didn't punish him and instead gave him a military rank. Is Minister Ye still not satisfied? Although he couldn't return to his fief, Jinwang's actions were indeed a promotion for Xiao Huan and not a punishment. Yeshu said in a small voice, then let's listen to your majesty. Then why haven't you taken out the things yet? Jinwang said. Whether or not this imperial edict can reach Xiao Huan's hands will depend on Minister Ye. Yeshu's ears burned. He put the things in his hands on the table. A piece of jade pillar, a piece of red silk, and a golden bell. The jade pillar was only the size of a pinky finger. It was used for someone who was going to make love for the first time to loosen up the passageway. As for the red silk and the golden bell, they were only used as decorations to liven things up. Jinwang stared at them for a moment, then he chuckled. You really know how to choose. Yeshu acted as if he was facing a great enemy. You said you'd let me choose myself. You can't go back on your word. Zhen won't go back on his word. Jinwang pulled him closer and kissed Yeshu intimately on the lips. As long as you don't regret it later. As soon as Jinwang said this, Yeshu immediately retreated. Yu Yan's treasure chest contained many different types of sexual toys. Yeshu had never seen some of them before and didn't know what they were used for. These 3 items were something that Yeshu thought he knew the use of. They were not as hardcore as the others. With these, he maybe won't be bullied so badly, probably. However, Yeshu still underestimated the Dog Emperor's methods. The temperature in the imperial study was just right. The current prime minister was pushed to sit on the dragon throne. His upper body was still dressed neatly, but the hem of his complicated robe was already disheveled, revealing 2 white calves. Yeshu's eyes were covered by a piece of red silk. His cheeks were bright red, and his lips were trembling slightly. Jinwang's voice suddenly came from beside him. Ashu, be good. Spread your legs a little more. His entire body trembled and he immediately heard the crisp sound of a bell in his ears. A golden bell was tied to his slender ankle. Why are you moving around so much? It's so noisy that I can't even read the memorials. Jin Wang put down the jade pillar, then lifted Yeshu's leg and placed it on the armrest of the dragon throne. He pulled him into his embrace. In the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, every time the bell rings, I will read one more memorial. Jin Wang lowered his head and kissed his forehead. Minister Ye, you have to hold on. The two of them fooled around in the imperial study for an entire afternoon. Soon, it was time for dinner. Head steward Gao Jin received permission and personally brought the food into the room. The dragon throne in front of the imperial study was already in a mess. Minister Ye's court robes and boots were carelessly thrown to the ground. It was obvious that the battle had been fierce. His Majesty and Minister Ye were not in the hall. Head steward Gao Jin put down the food and boldly looked into the warm room. Through the layers of gauze, he could faintly see two figures nestled on a small bed. The figures behind the gauze curtain moved slightly. Suddenly, there was a low sobbing sound. Head steward Gao Jin's face turned red. He didn't dare to look again and hurriedly retreated. Inside the warm room, Jin Wang hugged the person in his arms tightly and chuckled. Why are you so nervous? They've already left. The latter couldn't take it anymore. He leaned against Jin Wang's body and said in a trembling voice, Get off. Jin Wang didn't move. He kissed the corner of Yeshu's lips. My beloved official is so passionate. Zhen feel that my beloved official doesn't really want me to let me go. I didn't. Why didn't you listen to the summons last night? Jin Wang suddenly asked. He brought up the past again. If it weren't for this matter, he wouldn't have been bullied by this person. Yeshu felt extremely wronged. He said in a small voice, I really didn't do it to see Xiao Huan. I know. Jin Wang said, when I got there, I happened to see that he had just entered your room. Yeshu raised his head. Then why did you? Jin Wang met his gaze. A trace of craftiness flashed through his eyes. Yeshu looked away. You just want to bully me. How could that be? Jin Wang tightened his grip on Yeshu's waist and said with a smile, this emperor is just fulfilling his sweetheart's wishes. He understood Yeshu's body even better than this person himself. None of Yeshu's reactions could escape Jin Wang's eyes. Before he went to the Prime Minister's residence yesterday, he really didn't know why Yeshu didn't listen to the summons, but after he bullied him last night, he immediately understood the reason. He wanted it very badly but didn't dare to ask him directly. He could only use this method to avoid him. He still needed to be taught a lesson, though. As Jin Wang thought of this, he turned around with Yeshu in his arms and concentrated on teaching him a lesson. After a while, Jin Wang hugged Yeshu and laid back down on the small couch. He asked in a low voice, when did it start? Yeshu was still feeling satiated and tired. Even his fingers felt weak. It was just these past few days. Jin Wang asked again, are you still going to hide it from me in the future? Yeshu was taught a lesson by him. He obediently replied, no, I don't dare anymore. Jin Wang smiled in satisfaction and hugged him even tighter. The room was silent. The setting sun filled the main hall. Yeshu leaned into Jin Wang's arms and enjoyed a rare moment of warmth. His heart was filled with unprecedented satisfaction. Suddenly, Jin Wang whispered into his ear, you still haven't answered the question Xiao Huan asked you last night. Yeshu was stunned. Shugur, do you have someone you like? Jin Wang's smile faded. He looked at Yeshu and asked softly, is it Jin Wang? End chapter.